Hello, hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Ooh, I didn't see that. Okay, let's see. We're gonna change the description of this video. Welcome everyone to the stream. I'm gonna try to send the updated titles to every platform. And what we'll also do is we'll try to bring people on the stream as well so we can have like a nice question answer session as well. I'm gonna refresh. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna share the link in the chat for anyone to come on stream, and then we can have some nice discussions before I go and do my breakfast. So let's see if I can find the right buttons. Da, 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 da. Okay, so I'm gonna start sharing the link. And you should be able to see this in the chat now. And I'm also gonna go and see if my OBS can support that as well. So let's update the tickers as well. So we're gonna do a quick, and we'll also do here. So let's say we can QnA, do web dev, join the live stream. All right. So I think we're gonna do that. Good. And this is actually one of, I think this is the first time we're trying this out to see people coming live on the stream, and then we can have some nice discussions. There we go. Alrighty. Let's see if I can also open this. Yeah, there we go. All right, one of the things that I also just shared the last time when we were working on, we were looking into some desktop applications as well. And I think we also realized that we did have some commands that we built with our desktop application for the restream chat. But for some reason, when we were trying to run some specific or respond to specific commands, it was not trying to do that. So maybe in the future streams, we'll also update the application. And by the way, it's open sourced, so you can definitely look into that. But let's see. I'm going to try to bring up the application as well. And by the way, this stream has no agenda apart from just random question and answers. So we will see how this goes, and then we'll also keep this short. So this is not going to be the 2 hours stream. So again, if you don't know, I've shared the link in the chat, so you can see the link right here. So if you want to join the chat and have a one-on-one discussion during the live stream, you can click the link and join, and I can bring you on stage as well. Ahmad says, Assalamu alaikum, I'm learning. Ahmad said, Assalamu alaikum, I'm learning React Native. Can you tell me about its scope and importance? React Native is really good in terms of being a general language or a framework that you can use. So for those of you who don't know, React Native is basically React to some extent. So if you know React.js, you can work with React Native to build applications for Android and iOS primarily. I'm not really sure if they started supporting more platforms, but primarily Android and iOS. And the way it works is that React Native, when you code in JavaScript or TypeScript, and you code in React, and then it generates sort of components which are native components behind the scenes. And then also you have this bridge that is the React Native bridge that is used to communicate from your front end code, which is React.js code, to the actual native APIs. So when it comes to scope and importance, I think it is one of those frameworks which is really hyped, and it is one of those frameworks which has a lot of opportunities and jobs as well. So if a company is actually focusing on performance, they usually go with something like React Native or Flutter or something like this. So it is important. It is a nice framework. So definitely, if you're trying to learn it, try to build a lot of applications using it, and then obviously you can take it from there. Um, One of the things for those of you who are joining the live stream, you have to have your camera on, and then I can bring you to the stage as well. So then we can have a nice little chat. We don't want anonymous folks on the chat that we can't really see and talk. So I see Jignesh, you are on live. If you turn on your camera, I can bring you up on the stage. Samir says, Assalamu alaikum. I'm new to web dev. Which language has a nice scope? Which one should I master? Samir. So Samir, I think if you are really learning web dev, you should focus on HTML, JavaScript, and CSS as the core, because that's the foundation. And it doesn't matter which framework you go to, like React, Angular, Vue.js, or whatever, even React Native. At some point, you will have to learn the basics, because if you don't, then you're gonna get stuck at some point. So it's really important to learn the basics, the core concepts. And again, feel free to, you're asking things in the chat, but feel free to come on the stage as well. I've shared the link in the chat. I'm also going to try to show it again. And I'm also going to share this in the chat as well. So please feel free to join the chat. The only thing that you have to do is you have to have your camera on, of course. But you can join the link in the chat, and then we can have a discussion. And don't be shy. There are no wrong questions, and I myself am very respectful. So yeah, we'll have a nice, decent, and polite discussion. Doesn't matter what topic you choose, and doesn't matter how silly you think is the question is, because for me there are no silly questions. Every question is an important question. So feel free to join the chat or the live stream. Just make sure that you have the camera on. It doesn't matter if you're joining your phone, from your phone, if you're joining from your PC or computer, whatever. Please just ensure that you have your camera on. And if you feel shy about it, just ask the question in the chat. Coming back to this thing that we have, the question, one of the things when it comes to mastering a particular technology, what my seniors told me years ago is you need to spend at least a year on one particular technology, so you build the expertise out of it. So not trying to switch like every week or every month. You're starting with Python, then you go to JavaScript, then you go to something else. If you keep switching quite a lot, then you're not going to be an expert in any of those technologies. That's the reality. So the idea is to spend a lot of time mastering one particular thing and then taking it from there, to be honest. So that is what I would recommend. I see I have a lot of emails to look into, but I'll do that later. Okay, again, everyone who's just joined now, feel free to join the chat or join the live stream. There's a link in the there's a link in the chat. I'm gonna share this again, and once you do so, just make sure that you have your camera on, and then we can have a nice discussion. So I'm sharing that in the chat again. And I'll also try to put that in the ticker as well. Captions, and there we go. Link in the comments. There we go. Ali, are you ready to come on stage? Good. Assalamu alaikum, Ali.
Walaikum
जी अली.
assalam. Uh, if I am unable to talk in English, then can I speak Urdu?
You yes, you can speak in Urdu. That's fine. बताइए.
Uh, and आपको कोई यस यस जी आई अभी ना मैं इंटर जी वालेकुम अस्सलाम अभी मैं इंटर्नशिप कर रहा हूँ एज ए ना डॉट नेट डेवलपर तो नेक्स्ट आई वांट टू लर्न मतलब एंगुलर आई हैव सी योर ट्यूटोरियल व्हिच यू हैव दैट्स ऑलमोस्ट तो कैन यू गाइड मी कैन आई कंटिन्यू इट एज ए डॉट नेट डेवलपर और साथ इसको लेके चल सकता हूँ मैं स्कोप के रिलेटेड मतलब मीन थोड़ा गाइड कर सकते हैं
एब्सोल्युटली यार. पहले तो ये कि आप बहुत अच्छी इंग्लिश इंग्लिश बोल लेते हो, तो यू कैन स्पीक इन इंग्लिश, वेरी नाइस. दूसरी चीज़ ये कि फॉर डॉट नेट डेवलपर्स ये एक बहुत अच्छा कॉम्बिनेशन होता है आमतौर पे कि आप डॉट नेट बैकेंड पे यूज़ कर रहे हो और आप फ्रंट एंड पे एंगुलर यूज़ कर रहे हो और उसका अच्छा खासा स्कोप है मार्केट के अंदर. तो इट्स डेफिनेटली पॉसिबल फॉर यू टू कंटिन्यू विद डॉट नेट ऑन द बैक एंड एंड देन ऑन फ्रंट एंड यू कैन यूज़ एंगुलर. और इसका इफ़ अगर आपको बहुत अच्छा होना है एंगुलर के अंदर, तो वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट यू कैन डू इज़ के मुझे नहीं पता, आपने जो मेरा फ्री क्रैश कोर्स है ऑन यूट्यूब, आई थिंक आप वो देख सकते हो. उसने अभी मेरे ख्याल से तकरीबन 1 लाख कुछ व्यूज़ क्रॉस किए हैं और जो कमेंट्स आ रहे हैं अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह दैट्स वेरी 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 गुड अबाउट इट. तो अगर आपने नहीं देखा तो आप जो एंगुलर का क्रैश कोर्स है 90 मिनट्स का, तकरीबन 1.5 घंटे का, आप वो देख सकते हो. एंड देन वो देखने के बाद आप उससे जो चीज़ें आपने सीखी हैं उससे आप एप्लीकेशंस क्रिएट करना स्टार्ट करो. तो ये वो तरीका है जिससे मैं आमतौर पे सीखता हूँ. आई कीप क्रिएटिंग एप्लीकेशन और वो जो भी क्रिएट होता रहता है उसको मैं गिटहब पे अपने ऐड करता रहता हूँ एंड देन वो मेरा पोर्टफोलियो का पार्ट बन जाता है. तो आई थिंक दैट्स समथिंग दैट यू कैन डू एज़ वेल. और मुझे ये नज़र आ रहा है कि आपका इंटरनेट जो है वो थोड़ा सा ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है. तो अगर कोई चीज़ मिस हो गई हो या कुछ कट हो गया हो तो मुझे बताइएगा, मैं रिपीट कर दूँगा.
जी मुझे वॉइस ना डबल आ रही थी आवाज
सही, नो प्रॉब्लम. तो आई आई थिंक आपका मैंने शायद जवाब दे दिया होगा और आप तक पहुँच गया होगा. तो इफ़ देयर आर एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस
जी
यू कैन डेफिनेटली आस्क.
चलिए नेक्स्ट मूव ऑन करें आप मैं अभी
अल्लाह हाफ़िज़. So yeah, again, everyone who's watching, feel free to come and join the stream, and feel free to ask the questions in the chat as well. Invite up to 10 guests. I think Restream has a really nice software. At least it's easy to do when you're when looking at the stream, and then if you want to invite more people. So definitely. So everyone, we're gonna do this for, I think, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes more, and then we'll see where this goes. Uh, Khizr, can you turn on your camera? And then I can bring you to stage as well. Assalamu alaikum. Good to see you again.
या थैंक यू वालेकुम अस्सलाम कैसे हैं हसन भाई आप ठीक ठाक हैं
Alhamdulillah, ठीक ठाक. आप बताइए.
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह थैंक यू फॉर आप जिस तरह की जो स्ट्रीम्स करते रहते हैं डेफिनेटली इट हेल्प्स अ लॉट कि हम लोग इससे सीखें एंड आई मेट यू इन लाहौर बट देयर वर फ्यू क्वेश्चंस दैट आई वाज नॉट एबल टू आस्क यू बट आई थिंक आई कैन लेवरेज दिस फ्री स्ट्रीम
Absolutely.
एंड गेट योर टाइम टू आंसर दोस So मेरे कुछ questions हैं definitely I need to ask like I can go one by one. So पहला question ये है कि I've been into the web for almost like 6 years now and my major experiences is on Angular side. Although I do have worked in React and other UI frameworks, but majorly मैंने Angular पे ज़्यादा काम किया है. But I just wanted to ask, like based on data and all analysis and company जो मैं देखता हूँ, how do you see the scope of Angular in future compared to React and other UI frameworks?
I think the situation is that a lot of startups usually go with React, and obviously there are more startups than enterprises. So you see much more sort of opportunities for React as well, and then much more adoption as well. So I think when it comes to where Angular is going, it's it's becoming so much easier to learn Angular nowadays because of all the advancement that has had in the framework. At least from, I think, since Angular 19, or no, not Angular 19, Angular 9, when IV was introduced, and then you had all these nice little features coming in. But I think right now is probably the best time to get in Angular. It's so easy to learn, and if you are a senior who is going to, or who prefers working in a big organization or an enterprise where the work stream or the workload is not as high, or you don't need to ship as fast, you take your time architecting everything, then you plan it. It's a long process, and then you also code in a very concrete and robust manner. I think there is where Angular shines quite a lot, and I think it's going to get better going forward as well. So now startups are also trying to adopt that as well. And I was also mentioning to Ali, who was just here, that one of my videos, which is doing really really well, actually is a proof that Angular is gaining more traction and people are really liking it. So I think it's going to go very well from here on. But again, if you start comparing this with React and the opportunities that React has, then I don't think that's a fair comparison, or it's like apples and oranges. But Angular itself is going to still be very good because it's performant, it's easier to understand, it has more benefit than React. Personally, per my experience, I've been working with React for the past 7 years. One of the best things about Angular is that if even if you switch teams or companies, you're going to find similar code, you're going to find similar tools. You're not going to find the same team having four different engineers coding completely four different ways. I think that's the beauty of working with Angular.
Cool, cool, perfect. And as you said that there is compared to a React ecosystem, like comparing apple with oranges, I do agree that the job market for React market is much higher than the job
Mhm.
market for Angular. But personally, being into using Angular framework for quite some time, I love this framework a lot. The reason is that they restrict you in a
Mhm.
particular framework, whereas React does not. But coming again on this question, like I've been try to contribute in open source projects in actual Angular frameworks. But even though with some experience, I still find some issues on doing some contributions on Angular side in the actual
Mhm.
Angular framework. Although I did have some contribution in other like public projects and all that, but how to start and come into that particular site if you want to contribute an Angular, particularly into the Angular framework site, how much experience I've gone through the repo, their actual code, but setting up the Bazel and all that stuff is looking as in my opinion is something that you need to work hard and to try to contribute on the Angular side. Not talking about the documentation side, but the actual the framework side. How
I mean,
difficult
I
it
would
is.
say it's quite difficult, obviously, because I mean, when you talk about the framework, there are many parts to this. So, and the major part of that is the compiler. So you need to understand how the compiler works. How the statements are translated into regular JavaScript, etc., etc., and then also how they have coded. So it's a big project. It's quite a big project, of course. So to start contributing, you need to have a lot of information. But if you only start thinking about one particular thing, let's say you pick one issue and then you start exploring the Angular repo from there, I think that makes it a bit easier because you don't need to know everything. And also the difficulty of getting the Angular project running, I think it's a one time thing. So once you learn that, then it's going to be easier for you to contribute. But sorry, my camera died, I'm going to quickly fix that. But I think in general, when it comes to contributing to Angular, or making a mark as an open source contributor with Angular, what's more important is that you actually start contributing to work that includes Angular. It doesn't have to be the Angular code repository, to be honest. It can be, let's say, you have built something with Angular that is useful to others. For example, one of the things that people may be looking into, and I thought about this and I thought I would probably build it, maybe someone already has, that is, if you're building something which, let's say, against ChatGPT or Gemini or anything like that, and you're asking a question from a chat and you're receiving the response in a streaming pattern, creating a component for that. So creating a component that other people can use. So let's say just a UI component that anyone can just include as a library. That's a really good starting point. Or if there's one already out there on GitHub, you can maybe see what it lacks and then add more things to it. Even if it's perfect, add a theme on it, so to say. So there are a bunch of things that you can do, and I would usually recommend just going easy. Chameleon goes, thank you so much for the follow. But coming back, I think taking it slow is really important. I remember, and I think I've shared this in one of my videos, that when I started contributing to GitHub projects, the first year, none of my pull requests were approved at all. None at all. And I think the first two PRs to Angular repository were also rejected because either they failed the tests, or I did not have time to implement the test, or they were completely, stupid, so to say. And then the first PR was actually a change in the documentation, so it was not even code. So that's how I started. And I was like, oh yay, I I have contributed to Angular. But still, it was a big win for me as a first time contributor to the Angular project. And then you are like, okay, a lot of people use that, so a lot of people would see the documentation and whatnot. So I think starting slow is really important, and not looking at the whole problem and breaking it down into small steps can make things really, really easy, I think. Hmm?
Perfect, perfect. I think most of the questions is related to Angular, but I'll switch my
Hmm?
last two questions. One is that, as I said, that it's been quite some time in the web development side, but now with the era of AI and the advancement that has been done in the AI, like chat, you can take start from the chat GPT, then cursor, then bold, then
Hmm?
v0.dev and all that. How do you see that the role shifting, like considering the job market and other things? Like I see that the people now does not require only a front end engineer, so they demand that you need to be either a full stack engineer or maybe uh, considering that only the single stack would not work for you. So based on that, um, I do like front end, but I'm thinking and I'm putting my efforts to switch my domain into the cloud side and the website. So, how difficult it would be? I know you can not answer on
Hmm?
behalf of me, but just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, since you have a AI assistant now, you do not need mentors. If you are good at prompts and you can ask good questions from AI, you definitely get answers from that. But switching a domain, in your experience, or maybe the colleagues that you have worked in and the experience in years, how do you find switching a domain? Is it a good option that I really wanted to shift to cloud and AI side and the DevOps side specifically, I would say.
I think, I mean, what I believe in is the person has to be an expert in at least one domain. So ideally, if you feel like you've done enough in a domain and you want to switch, or you want to switch because of other reasons, like you get high pay, but then you would have to understand that it's going to take some time, of course. For me, even, I remember when I had 2.5 years or 3 years experience in front end, and I switched to a project with Java. It took me 2 days to just replicate one single API call, because I never did that before, and I was like, okay, if there was a huge task of front end, I could have done that in 2 hours, and this simple thing I can't do it in 2 days. So I think that's the reality, and that also is the same for me. Now I'm learning a bit of Python and a bit of machine learning, the core concepts like lemmatization, tokenizing, blah blah blah. But I know that my expectation should be that I'm gonna struggle quite a lot in the beginning, and then it would become easier for me. One of the other examples that I give recently to everyone I'm mentoring is I have a pull up bar in my on my door, and when I when I installed it, I couldn't even do one pull up like this, and now I can do four in a span of I think 2 months. And even people who say if you can do 10 pull-ups, then you're really strong. So I'm almost halfway there. But it takes time, and if I left it and got scared, then that would not be it. But to coming back to your question, if you're focusing on essentially cloud and DevOps, you have to understand two things. One, the opportunities are a bit less because for cloud, when you go, you set up things, then for a long period of time, you don't really do much once you have, set up the infrastructure. If you go with something that is becoming not a cloud engineer, but let's say a solutions architect, I think that's better, because then you're not continuously doing the same thing. You connect with clients. Let's say you get hired in AWS or you get hired in some sort of cloud provider. Then you're actually consulting clients about the solutions that your provider has, and then giving them the best solution. I think that's much better in terms of the complexity, as well as you know how you feel and how quickly you feel a satisfaction in that regard. So I think the career switch can be beneficial for sure if you feel like it. I don't think that the part where AI comes in right now, it is definitely changing the landscape of front end developers. To be honest, I don't think anyone is just a web developer anymore. They are like, and I was having a discussion with Ahmed Aviz from Langbase yesterday about this, that everyone almost is just an AI engineer. So they are working with AI, but then they are also working more on top of it to fix things that AI, is spitting out just as garbage, so to say. So I think it's still good to have some skill compared with what you want to do. For example, web dev, and then you also work with something related to AI, a bit of Python, maybe cloud DevOps. So definitely, I think that's a really good idea.
Cool.
Hey, Victor.
Great.
What?
One last question that I would then I will conclude my this session. Uh, how AI has been crucial on from developers' point of view. Like I've been using AI for quite some time now, and my daily task being like asking prompts and doing all those. So at some time, I feel that the more you AI you are using, the more dumb you are becoming, in my opinion, because it really like not let you to think more about on that. But I always try to use minimize AI as much as I can, but there are some times where you need some good solutions where you can ask good
Mhm.
questions from AI. And so from that point of view, like what's your thought on that? Like how much AI should be used and should not be used? Because even for the basic things, I've seen many people, even myself also, that using AI to do the stuff. Like for example, code refactoring, adding test cases, and all that stuff. I usually try to use AI much a lot
Mhm.
on that side. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like when you are trying to switching a company where you need to ask
Mhm.
and pass interview, but somehow and you cannot answer that. I have used
Mhm.
AI a lot to do my work
Ab-
on that part. But
Absolutely.
what's
So
thoughts on?
one of the things is AI. For me, AI can do automation, and AI is a search buddy. That's it. Um, to grow as a software developer, you need to get into issues and you need to solve them, and you need to sort of remember what was the problem and what was the solution. I won't say that you need to memorize like where did you go to Stack Overflow, blah blah blah, but you need to remember this is what happened and this was the solution. When you start using too much of an AI, you don't think. So we have our prefrontal cortex, which is in the brain, and it is um, it is also what gives a long-term memory, and also is used for computation, if I'm not wrong. But when you start going on an autopilot mode, that becomes a problem. When asking AI and solving problems becomes a habit, and I'm going to be very focused on being a habit here, because a habit is something that you do, subconsciously. For example, you don't really think about closing a door, you just close the door. Sometimes you're like, did I close the door or not? Or sometimes you go into a room and you're like, why did I come in this room? So when you're not really thinking, you're actually not putting that in your memory, hence you're not really learning from it. So for me, anything that requires automation, I basically go for that, or anything that no one is going to hold me liable for example, I mentioned this a couple of times as well. I was working on my books website, ngcookbook.com, and I created a chatbot for this. And for that chatbot, the whole idea was, if anyone wants to ask any question about my book, it just responds. The reality for me is that I want this system out there. I want it to produce good results. I don't need to learn how it works for me. As long as it works, it's good for me. If that's what your approach is, then that's good. You can, rely completely on AI. You don't need to learn it. But when you're actually working in a workplace where you are liable for your work, you need to understand it, and you also need to go and do this repetitively. So you can't really rely completely on AI. And just to mention about what you said as well, that one of the people that I was mentoring and I'm mentoring, and probably will have a few sessions more as well, actually shared this concern that since the person was using a lot of AI, Microsoft Copilot in general, they're not really confident about their interviews at all, and they have not been successful in some interviews as well. So this is the reality, and this is not like something I'm making up. This is the reality. People out there, they don't really learn if they are relying too much on AI. So I would say that it's excess of anything is bad. The same goes with AI. You can just use it in replacement of Stack Overflow or Google search, but that's pretty much it. You need to fact check, and you will see almost every AI agent or provider has this disclaimer at the bottom: use with caution. It may produce wrong results. So yeah, how can you rely on something completely that says this?
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Because just on the concluding remarks, that definitely you mentioned that don't do some, like, in common words, stratification, like on memorizing things, but it's more about like you understand the business requirements and concept, and you're utilizing the automation part and using this AI tools to enhance your productivity. Makes sense,
Absolutely.
makes sense. Thank you so much, Hasan bhai, and hope to see you, meet you
Inshallah.
somewhere, someplace,
Inshallah.
inshallah. And
Thank you
thank
so much
you
for
for your
joining.
time and our
Allah Hafiz. Alrighty. So yeah, we have Gurpreet who joined as well, but unfortunately did not have the camera. So I would have to remove you, but I can still respond to your question in the chat. Gurpreet says, "Sir, I know React.js. What project, according to you, for helping getting a job? Is there anything a project which meets interview expectations?" So to repeat the question, what kind of projects help you get a job? So first, I'm going to tell you what kind of projects do not help you get a job. One of those is to-do application, weather application, or weather API calls. You're building anything that is there in a lot of tutorials out there, and when your applications go to the recruiter, they have seen that already, right? So anything that is let's also break it down, take one step back. If you follow a tutorial and build application, and you do it word by word or code by code, and you don't add anything to it at all, that's not beneficial to anyone, because you just followed a tutorial. That means that, okay, you followed it, maybe you got the whole code, but how do you really show that you have the expertise of that particular technology? So one of the things that you can do that, by adding more features to that application. For example, if you have a to-do application, you just add more features. For example, finding to-dos, make to-dos shareable, having folders for those to-dos so you can, organize them in a better way, changing the layout completely, using some library like, I don't know, Daisy UI or Tailwind CSS and design, whatever, to make it different from what the tutorial had. If you do it like exactly same by same CSS, same UI, then it's yeah, you're not standing out in front of the recruiter. So changing the layout, changing the font, changing or adding your own name to it, so making it distinguishable from everyone out there is really, really important when you're going to apply for a job. Because the reality is that we had layoffs in the past, in past few years. We also had layoffs just now in 2025. So Facebook, I think, laid off more than 3,600 people recently. And from what I read in an article, Google also has said open invitation for people to retire or resign, whatever, which means that when you're applying for jobs, you're actually competing with a lot of people. And unfortunately, the situation is unfortunate, of course. Unfortunately, you need to stand out when you're going to a recruiter. And the people that I've been mentoring quite a lot, we have discussed this with them, and we also have discussed what to do in this regard. And I'm telling you some of those things. So you need to have a project that stands out. First of all, when you say I'm gonna make a to-do application, I'm gonna say no, don't make a to-do application, or call it something else. Call it shopping list, call it travel bucket list, call it, I don't know, invoice management, whatever. Don't create, or you don't need to create a unique project. I'm going to repeat this again. You don't need to create a unique project that no one has created before. A lot of people get confused about this, and then they are like, oh, I can't think of a project like this. And then, no, I'm not going to be able to make something like this. The reality is that you don't need a unique project. You just need a project that shows your skills. You need a project that is not like 90% of the people what they submit. So if you submit even slightly different, that's okay. So you don't submit the exact same thing that the tutorial basically built. So I think that's going to be my take on how or what projects that get you a job. So build like a tax calculator, build like something that's useful. For example, shopping bucket list is one of the things. You can also build things like employee invoice submission. So for example, if my company has given me an an allowance of 3000, let's say, Pakistani rupees for fuel, I can submit my invoices. The employee or the employer can actually see those invoices, approve or reject. Simple. Keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. So that could be one of the projects if you are working to get a full stack job. I hope that makes sense. Victor says, "How can I land tech jobs globally? I'm based in South Africa. Can I inbox you directly?" Yeah, you can. You can inbox me directly. Okay. Ashwant says, I'm learning Android application development. Can you please tell me about the scope? The scope of Android development is still there. Android development, or when you're working with Kotlin or Java, still has the best performance because it's native. So nothing compares with the native APIs or with the native development. So if you are a developer who knows the native application development, I think you have a good scope. Not many people do that. So yeah, I think it has a good scope. Any Laravel developer here? Ali Imam says, I don't think so. Nobody has said that, to be honest. Gene World, thank you so much for the follow. So, did I miss any message? Yes, this was a message from Heather Ali. Heather says, what factors do you consider when choosing a tech stack for a project? So there are multiple factors. One of the major factors is if, for example, if I know the tech stack myself. The second factor would be where I'm going to deploy this. Does it going to cost for this? And if it's going to cost me some money, then do I have a way of getting that money back? And especially for clients as well. If I'm working for a particular client, then I would discuss this with them that, this is going to be the budget for the front end deployment, for the back end deployment. And then, if you have this amount of users, yeah, you're getting back the money. So it depends a lot of things. For me personally, when you ask me what do I consider, it's not about myself only, it's about the team as well. So you need to see what kind of skill set do you have in your team, and you obviously don't want to pick something that your team doesn't possess. So if your team has React expertise, you're not going to go for Flutter, or you're going to go for Angular or Vue.js. So your team expertise, it's also going to be what is the long term goal for the teams. Are you going to hire more developers in Angular or React? And then also, if it's easy to maintain, of course, easy to maintain, easy to deploy, easy to ship in a longer period of time. And a lot of the technical discussions or technical stack basically depends on the team and the organization. How do teams in my company will ship this project? So that's a big factor. I saw someone joined the stream, but then they didn't have the camera on. So please, if you join the stream, you have to have the camera on, and then we can take it from there. I'm going to share the link in the chat once again, and you can see it right here. Christian says, a very good project is Code Challenge web app for TypeScript. Need to compile parse solutions. For TypeScript, need to compile part solution. Do you mean compiling TypeScript, or I don't understand? Code challenge web app. Okay, now I understand. So you're saying that a really good application could be an app that has code challenges. So you're given a code, you're asked, or you're asked to code something, and then you write the code within it, and then it tells you if the code is correct or not. So I think, I think junior developers may not be able to do this, to be honest, but it is definitely a really good. If you really want to show off your skills as a good software engineer, definitely, I think that's a really good idea, to be honest. But how would you go about it? I think I would probably, because I know a lot of applications try to embed VS Code, I think, or what is the editor name? Is it called Monaco or something? I don't know. I don't remember. But essentially, you're having a code editor embedded within your project, and then you're parsing it as well in some way. But I understand what you mean. Like free code camp where you submit solution running test. Exactly, I understood. Yes. Sagib, Sabib UK. Thank you so much for following. Alia says, is there a way to connect with you? Yes, definitely. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm gonna share the links in the chat. But if you go to codewithsn.dev, you can definitely find there. But I can also say bio.link/codewithsn. I'm gonna share that on the screen right now. But what you see here is actually the link to join the stream right now if you want to ask questions, and essentially just have your camera on, and then we can have a chat. We're gonna do this for just a while more, maybe 15 more minutes. Then I'll go and have breakfast with my family. So this is the link that you can try to see my links on. So this has all the links that you probably need. I'm going to quickly share the screen as well. Da 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 da. So this is how, what happened to this? Yeah. So this is what you'll see when you go to that particular link. And you can find the link from Facebook, X, blah, blah, blah. But I think the LinkedIn is the easiest way. Or if you try to find Mohammed Hassan Ayaz, this is what you'll find. And you can basically find me there. Just reach out. I usually respond in like 24 hours. So definitely try to reach out there. Good, awesome. Lead code impact on our resume. Sorry, give me 1 second. Sabib says, my pleasure, no problem. Okay, so this is the question. So lead code's impact on our resume. If you're applying for a job that requires lead code, it's a really good idea to do so. If you're not going to apply for a job, I think you don't need it. But if you're doing lead code, you're doing like practicing all those algorithms and approaches, it definitely makes you a good good developer or good software engineer. So you know how to solve problems, complex problems really efficiently. So you learn how to work with objects or dictionaries compared to arrays, which algorithm is better for which one. I think it's really good that you do it. But when it comes to like, do you need it? If you're going to just change the color of the buttons on a website or multiple websites, I don't think you need to do lead code, to be honest. And a lot of jobs honestly out there are just this. You go, you change the UI, you implement more pages, but you're most likely not really writing any complex logic unless you're working with something that parses, compiles, aggregates, which is usually done in the back end much more than in the front end. But yeah, if you do lead code, then it's really good, of course. Gene World says, any advice for me? Still a student in software engineering, undergraduate. So, Gene, I think the advice I can give is obviously focusing on your studies. It's much more important to get the ground really solid, and you can start working on your portfolio. When it comes to resumes, when it comes to hiring, it doesn't matter how skilled you are if you cannot sort of convince the recruiter that you are the perfect match for the job. That's what I say to everyone that I mentor one-to-one. And that is because the target of you as a developer who's searching for a job should be, how do you make it so that it takes the least amount of time for a recruiter to find that you are the right person for the job. That's the goal. Whatever you do as an action item has to follow this sentiment, has to follow this aim, which means you're going to create a bunch of projects. You're going to make sure that they're deployed. You're going to make sure your resume has the links to those projects. You're going to make sure that when someone goes to those projects, they can see those projects. That means they're deployed somewhere. So you have a public URL where they can see whatever you have built in terms of UI. And please don't have any authentication in those. So no authentication required because it adds a barrier for someone to try out your application. So have your application such that it's ready to be tested for free. Okay. One of the things that I can also share, maybe just now, and I'm just ensuring I don't share anything that is not necessary. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I see no one is coming to the live stream at the moment, so we'll probably finish soon. Wait, where's my screen? Entire screen. Share that. There we go. So how do I make this nicely? I think this is how I do it. Yeah, there we go. Or this is how I do it. No, I don't like this one. This is the one. Or this is the one. Yeah. So let's do it like this. So for example, if I go to my GitHub profile, now I actually forgot what I was trying to say. But let's say if you go to my GitHub profile, you see that there are a bunch of more than 1,000 people who are following me for some weird reason. Just kidding. And we have a bunch of projects here as well. So we have NGX device detector, 2 of my books which have been published. You can see that people have given likes. And I often say, if someone likes your project, if you get 1 star on your GitHub project, that's like 1 million follows on Instagram, to be honest. Nobody likes anyone's project unless they really, really like it. And then we have other repositories here. For example, let's take this one that I worked with IOMX for this. So in here, if someone goes here, what do they see in my project? They see a really nice description or a really good README that tells that everything is passing for this package. They have a little animation that shows the project. So nobody even needs to go to any other link to see what the project does. So this is like on the README, you have a simple GIF file, which essentially shows the animation of what's happening. Then we have the demo link. So if I click this, I can actually go and try this out in real time. I can actually try this. You can see that I can go back, next, back. I can also sort of configure different things here as well. For example, instead of next, I say forward, and that also works here as well. So I have made this so that the recruiter, when they go to my portfolio, they find it really easy to say, okay, this guy knows what the person is doing. And that is really, really important. So have your README or your GitHub profile become your resume, so to say. Because to be honest, I had very few moments when I actually had to send even my resume, the PDF that you send. I usually just said, okay, this is my GitHub, go and check it out. And then you can also see like my contributions throughout there as well. But more important, what projects I've worked on. So I think the first thing is the projects. Absolutely, you need to have them. There's no going around. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. There we go. So I hope that answers the question. I'm Barry G and followed the host. Thank you so much, Barry. Okay, so getting some more questions from the chat. So I think I also already answered this one to Alia. Connect with me on LinkedIn and then you can send a question. How many pages should... okay, sir, in your opinion on resume, what to add in resume and how many pages it should be, your point on resume. So for the resumes, the good thing that you can do is keep it as small as possible. So 1 page is usually what people say, but you can have more than 1 pages, to be honest, but they have to be very specific. So one of the things that people would want to see is what is your experience? For example, have you worked on any in any companies before? If not, then the first thing that they want to see is what you have built. So have like projects that you have built, the title of the project, then you can share why did you build it, what did you build, or you build the whole project yourself, or did you work with different people? So you need to mention those things. Then also mention the technical stack within each project. So you can say, for example, I built an app called Focus Doro at some point. I'm going to quickly share my screen again so I can show that. I won't be able to show my resume because it contains my my personal information. Where's my mic? Oi. Where's my... For some reason, my mouse went away. What? Windows, what are you doing? Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna try to figure this out. I'm gonna try to disconnect and reconnect again. There we go. That was weird. Okay, so let's say I talk about this project. So focus Doro.application. So I built this with Angular, and what this allows you to do is to focus basically with a Pomodoro technique. So 25 minutes of focus, and then once 25 minutes are passed, then it automatically switches to break, which is 5 minutes, and then it automatically switches to focus, so to say. Okay, so this is what this app does. So I'm going to be in my resume, I'm going to write that this is the application, this is the link of it, this is what the app does, and this is why I built the application. And did I build the application myself, or did I have more people involved in it? And I will also mention the technical stack. For example, this one I used Angular for the front end, and then for the back end or for storing the tasks, I used Firebase. For example, give me 1 second. I'm gonna try to let's say if I say login, I'm gonna bring this to the other side. So this uses Firebase behind the scenes, and you can see that here I have my username automatically coming from Firebase. And if I had any tasks, I would also see those. For example, first task, and I can save that. Once it does, I would be able to see it here, unless my Firebase, I think my Firebase credentials expired now. Yeah, you see, permission denied because my Firebase credentials expired. Anyways, since I'm using Firebase, I get all of my tasks here, and I can share this information that Angular and Firebase is what I use. So you share that. So you have all your projects in the first place. Then you have your experience, and then you have your education. And don't put anything in your resume that you don't know about. So what people do usually, that is a big mistake, is that they put like 10 things that are major, and they put like PHP, Java, C++, Rust, React, big things, and they're just passing out, or they're just graduating from university. How is it possible that you are an expert in all of those things? Okay, so since you're amateur, you usually do that, and I did it myself. I think at some point I had Microsoft Office in my resume for some weird reason, but has nothing to do with programming. But you learn this by experience, or someone tells you like, don't do this stupid stuff. So ideally, don't put a lot of things that you don't know about. Put only the things that you're really comfortable about. For example, if you have worked with PHP or Python for a couple of months, then you just put that. One of the reasons that I'm also telling you is because when you put these things in your resume, the interviewer will ask about these things. When I was working at Klarna in Sweden for about 2 years, in a span of 1 year, I took more than 90 interviews, right? And in some weeks, I took 3 interviews, like 1.5 hours each. And when I see in your resume that, okay, you have these things like Angular, React, I don't know, React Native, let's say Flutter, and I'm familiar with those things, I'm going to ask you questions. And if you don't answer those questions, then that means you lied on your resume. Nobody wants to hire anyone who lies. So I hope that answers the question. In the live, thank you so much for the follow. So I hope that answers the question. I'm gonna pick the next question. And again, feel free to reach out or feel free to join the stream. I'm gonna share the link again in the chat. We have just a couple of minutes more before we wrap up. So I'm gonna try to answer any questions in the chat first, and then we'll take it off. And let me know in the comments, is this stream something that you would want to have going ahead, or is this useful? Is this useless? Let me know in the chat. So Abdul Wahab says, when we can consider ourselves to go for agency. As of now, I'm a software engineer, but I want to start an agency and I don't have proper plan when, where, and how to start. What do you suggest me? Really good question, Abdul Wahab. So what I would suggest is, if you don't know something and you're going into it, then that means that you're taking a risk. If you can take the risk, go for it. If you're not financially independent and if you cannot take the risk, then I would say don't take the risk, right? Some people just do it out of passion and then they regret. So if you are going in, make sure that you have like an initial expectation that you're not going to regret it, just to make sure. Now, in order to run a business, you need to know how to run a business. So, what I would suggest is you first work in a company among the top decision makers and see how they grow the company. So, how they grow an agency, how do they get projects, what is their process of bringing in more leads, how do they handle employees, payments, what is their system of accounting, taxation, a lot of things, marketing, for example. If you don't know any of those things and you're just going in without knowing anything, then I think you're going to have a problem. So the right way to do this would be to first experience it with someone, and then you jump into it. So to be honest, for example, if I want to be a software architect, I would actually try to either create something from beginning, that is the architecture of something, or I would work closely with a software architect as an associate software architect. So I see like how does the person think, how does he make choices between this versus that, what is his process, what books does he read, for example, all of those things. So you either learn something from your own experience or you learn from someone else's experience. Those are essentially the only two kind of learnings we have as humans. So if you can take the risk and you want to create an agency, knowing that you may fail and you're okay with that, then go with that. Otherwise, I would say be a bit more cautious. Try to learn from someone else, be with someone else for a while, and then you learn those, then you can do it for sure. So, Tamil, you need to have your camera on in order for me to bring you to the stage. Codewater says, thanks for the good content. Just by watching your 90-minute Angular, I completely made a simple to-do app type health application, which was an assignment with tests as well, and did in time, but it did not bundled. Nice. Good. Can I have some clapping? Awesome. Then Codewater says, just because of dependency mismatch, like I was mad because if I like Tailwind 4, it's not compatible with Angular 19. So why just run in dev mode? I think that's not true, Codewater. You can actually work with Tailwind 4 and Angular 19. I should probably create a video about this, but I'm pretty sure I have something in the works that has Tailwind CSS 4 and working with Angular 19. I think I'm using the Daisy UI's 5 version beta, which uses which uses Tailwind CSS 4. I'm gonna create a video about that, but I'm gonna note it down so I don't forget about it. Where's my pen? I've lost all of my pens, or my kid took them. I'm gonna write in a notepad. Give me 1 second before I move to second question. So Angular, Tailwind, CSS 4. There we go. Okay. Factional Solution. Thank you so much for the follow. Mommy followed us. Thank you so much for the follow. Okay. I'm gonna take more questions. And again, Tamil, if you want to come to the stage, you need to have your camera on. Heather says, are there any alternatives to Stripe in Pakistan to do payment integrations and development environment and test fake payments in Pakistan? I'm not really sure if the solutions we have the dev settings or the dev environments, but I'm pretty sure you have other payment frameworks, like you have JazzCash, you have EasyPesa. I think all of them have SDKs or software development kits, which means you will find a Node.js package for it or PHP package for it, most likely. So yeah, definitely we have payment solution in Pakistan, but I'm not really sure if they provide dev environment, to be honest. I've never worked with another solution, to be honest. Codewater says, is my a multiplayer bingo board game using WebSocket proper functionality with tests as well as proper auth and all features is done by me from scratch as much as possible, enough to land a job? A multiplayer bingo game using WebSocket with the proper functionality. I think that's a really solid project. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and the reason why I'm saying is that just creating the project won't do it. You need to have it deployed. You need to have it have the README for it. You need to have like some animations or some GIF files that show like what the process is in your README. So as I said before, you need to reduce the time it takes for a recruiter to say this is my guy, or this is this is the person that I want to hire. If you can do that, then I think, yeah, it's very likely that you can get a job pretty easily. But what the project itself, technically, I would be impressed if I see what you have done and you can explain to me how you have done it. So those things are important. So prepare for answering questions about your project. Prepare to point like this is where the back end is, this is the front end, this is the socket, this is how I'm making the channels for communication in the socket. If you can do that, I think that's really good, to be honest. So hopefully, yes, you'll get the job. Gurpreet says, thank you so much for the response. No problem at all. Happy to help. Tamil says, when you prepare for an interview as an experienced developer, how would you prepare it? What kind of questions should one expect in that interview? Really good question. So, as a senior developer, when you try to apply for a job, you need to ask the recruiter what is it that is expected in the job. If you can guess that this is something that's going to involve a lot of complexity, a lot of complex algorithm, then obviously you need to do the data structures and algorithms, lead code, all sort of that side of paradigm. Or the recruiter tells you that we use lead code solutions, or we ask questions that is programming questions, and that would include something related to algorithm efficiency, etc. So the key here is to know what is the interviewer going to ask. And unfortunately, there's no general principle of what an interviewer should ask or asks in general. Even in one company, I've seen multiple people just asking different questions completely, because everybody wants to ask questions that they feel comfortable about and they know about it. And it's quite possible that the experience that a senior has is not an experience that you have, or someone who's asking you questions, you both have different sort of experiences or different knowledge or different level of depth in the project. Some interviews, it doesn't or some interviewers, it doesn't matter how good answer you give them. If you don't know what they know, then it's going to be over for you. And I would say just don't get hired in such a company where there are people who don't really know how to ask interview questions. So if the interviewer is fair and they ask you questions that you should know as a basic sort of fundamental concept of your job requirements, and you can't do that, then that's wrong. So if you're applying for as a React developer, then obviously they're going to ask you about React questions. So you go Google. One of the basic things is just Google React interview questions, see a few first options, try to go through them and understand if you know the concept clearly, whatever the interview question is on those websites. And if not, then you learn about them, because it's very likely that if you are going into an interview, there's a chance that the person who's going to ask you questions is a busy person, is constantly working on the software, shipping products, fixing bugs, whatever, and they don't really have time to go through and prepare a whole document of questions for you. So they're going to do the same. They're going to go to Google, they're going to find through first few questions, and then obviously they're going to ask you questions from that. Or if they're knowledgeable, they're obviously going to ask questions from their mind. But regardless, the basics of your job requirements should be met. So if you're going as a React developer, you should know about React. If you're going as a front-end developer, you should know about front-end in general. You should know about how to make HTTP calls, a bit about HTTP protocol, of course, about how to integrate with different APIs, about CSS, JavaScript, HTML, of course. Also, then it depends on what level of engineer you're going for as your job's position. If you're going as a senior developer, then you should know some tricky things about HTML. For example, what is HTTP2 push, for example, and how to optimize images, how to work with web performance, for example. What are Chrome's web performance metrics is, for example, the core web vitals. You should know about those. The largest contentful paint, the time to interactive. We also have, I think, interaction to next paint, which was recently introduced. How to analyze performance using dev tools, how to reduce the time it takes for a page to load. So I can go on and on, but the question usually would be, do you know what is expected from the job? And if you know, then you prepare accordingly. So I think that's the short answer. Not so short answer. Victor asks, where are you based? I'm right now based in Stockholm, Sweden. Christian says, ask AI interview questions, ask to elaborate on each response. That's a really good tip as well. Thank you, Christian. So you can ask ChatGPT, Claude, or I don't know, Google Gemini to prepare for interview questions, and then you can ask it to explain as well. I probably wouldn't rely on the answers quite a lot, to be honest. I would rather go to the documentation. For example, if you're preparing for React interview questions, you can ask it questions, and I would recommend to not rely on the explanation from ChatGPT, for example. And the reason I'm saying this is ChatGPT, etc., is trained on public data, and I mean, there's good data, there's bad data. I don't think an AI agent or an AI platform distinguishes between what is true, what is not true, or which is from the official people of React, for example, and which is from someone random who might be just saying something. So you get the questions from AI, and then you go to the official documentation to React to learn more about it, or books or articles which are endorsed by a lot of people. So you go to the article, you see how many people have liked it, how many people have commented it, if the person is just saying something without knowing, because today a lot of people just using AI to generate stupid stuff that may or may not be true. So, and we have actually seen people who are, and I'm not going to take any names, but people actually senior who are just using AI to post stuff. That's not healthy at all. Okay. I'm gonna see the next question. Please tell me, how much should I expect, even if I have done an internship as a full stack developer for the startup? What do you what do you mean? How much should I expect? Or what is the expectation? I'm not really sure. What do you mean? Do you mean how much you should know, or do you mean how much salary should I expect, or what? I'm a bit confused. Maddie, thank you so much for joining. Then we have Syed, who's asking, I learned recently AngularJS from your tutorial. I just want to say thank you, buddy. No problem, Syed. Happy to help. And just for clarifications, when we say AngularJS, usually in the community, we're talking about the first version of Angular, which was released in 2013 or 2012, if I remember correctly. So AngularJS is 1.x. Now we are at Angular 19. So everything after Angular 2 is just Angular. So no AngularJS. Okay. So it's just Angular. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is. Coldwater says, thank you so much. No problem at all. Tamil says, thanks a lot, SN. No problem at all. Is AngularJS still around? Unfortunately, yes. I'm just kidding. Yes, it is. There are a few companies that actually only support AngularJS. So, for example, I know consultancy companies which help enterprises who are still working on AngularJS. So it is around, especially in enterprises. For example, I know even in companies like Scania, there may be teams who are using AngularJS. It's quite possible. Heather says, what is the best way to find a remote jobs at startups since you have been working outside for Pakistan for a long time? I think the best way is to apply through Indeed, for example, Indeed.com, and also looking via LinkedIn as well. One of the things that I try to suggest people is not to throw the same CV without any context to a bunch of jobs, because you're sending just one CV to them, they're receiving hundreds of CVs. So what makes your CV unique, standing out? Do you have projects to show? Is your CV well structured? Does it have links that people can go and see? There's a lot that goes to applying for a job, and it's not that you just go and tuck 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 apply to a bunch of jobs with the same CV. No cover letter, no not saying you understand the job requirement, you feel like it matches what you are working on, you feel like you're going to contribute to the company in a nicer way. So all those things that actually make like a good impression and also a good contact, and has to be genuine as well, of course, that you're not just saying this, make you through the pre-interview process. So you go actually into the interview round. Otherwise, you don't, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Alrighty, I see that we don't have many questions. I think this was a really good stream in general. Thank you so much for asking questions. Coder says, first salary. Now it depends on where you live, because the salary is different in Pakistan versus India versus US. So where are we talking about? Kristen says, also sometimes it helps to investigate company and reach directly to CEO, CTO, especially startups. Absolutely. For startups who are just starting out, of course, it's good to reach out there to their developers, to their CEO, CTO, if you are really interested in obviously joining, and especially if they have an opening. So you can reach out to, and even you can reach out to recruiters as well. But you have to be genuine. You have to show connection. You have to show some compassion. You have to show some will that is not just for example, if you just send a recruiter who is looking for an intern, and you open LinkedIn, you go to their profile, you click, message, DM, and then you go in there, you add your CV, and then you just send. No message, no hi, hello, no why you are applying, or you saw this job opportunity. You're just sending the PDF. Doesn't really work, and that's essentially a lot of people do, unfortunately. In India, that's gonna be tough. I know that in Pakistan, the people who do internship, I think they're getting around 75 to 80,000. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the chat. But I think they're at least getting, if you're a graduate and then you have done an internship as well, then I think you should be getting something from 70 to 80 at least, and then maybe more as well. And my camera died. I'm gonna quickly switch the battery, and that's also a signal for me to leave as soon as possible. But yes, so what I would say is, if you're talking about something in India, you can compare that with Pakistan. So in Pakistan, we have about 75 to 80 at least, and I think it can go up to 100,000 Pakistani rupees. What are the prerequisites to start contributing to open source projects? None. Just create a GitHub project. Try to find any project that you can run on your device. For example, let's say someone has built a portfolio website. You can go and try to run that project on your machine. If they're missing something, you try to add a feature to this, but first you need to create an issue in the GitHub project. So you can say, for example, you have a portfolio website template, but it doesn't have the GitHub link in the header, let's say, keeping it simple. Then you first create the issue, and then you go and create the pull request for it. That's easy. The easiest pull request could be something that you can fix in the documentation of a project. So you read the documentation, you find something is spelled wrong, or it's not grammatically correct, or you try to see, for example, if they're missing some information, if they're missing a screenshot of the demo or a GIF animation of the demo, you add that, and I think everybody appreciates that. When trust me, I've a lot of open source projects. I've even open source projects which are used by thousands of projects on GitHub. I have one project that is a NGX device detector. I'm not really sure if I showed that before, but I can maybe show that to you. But I know that that project is being used by more than 5,000 projects on GitHub. But GitHub is a bit weird. It sometimes shows you that, but sometimes doesn't do that. So here now this doesn't show it. So here it used to show how many projects use this. But combined, it has like over 11 million downloads overall, and in 1 month, it's like 700,000 a month. If you do it in Pakistan or India, it's like almost 7 lakh downloads per month. But essentially, what was I trying to say? Yes, contributing to open source projects. So if I'm working on an open source project and someone tries to say, "Hey, this is a problem in your project, and I have a pull request that I've created. Please review it," I would be really happy, to be honest. So definitely, I would say that's the way to go. Code border, I think I said a number. So it's in Pakistan, it should be at least 75 to 80,000 Pakistani rupees per month. And it could go up to 100 or 110,000 depending on the company. If it's a startup, has a lot of fundings, then it's quite possible that a person who's graduated, has done already an internship, could get about 110,000 Pakistani rupees a month, and you can convert that into Indian Pakistani rupee or Indian rupees. Sorry. Good. All right. I think with that said, I'm gonna actually close this. Some repos has first contribution friendly issues as well. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that as well. That I can also share before wrapping up. Really good point. So if you go and search GitHub first, I think it's called first timer issues. No, it was something different. Good first issues, if I remember correctly. Good first issue, yeah. So if you try to go to good first issue, here you can actually try to find all the projects which have which have the title or label that says good first issue, which means that it's easier for someone to contribute to it. So for example, if I say language, I can go and say JavaScript, and then if I search that, so we have Avni web app, something like this. If I go here, it has a bunch of stars. What is this? So not a great readme, but if I open this, it's like Avni project find service. So it has some things here. Now if I go to the issues here, you can see that on refresh of the page, when token has expired, redirect to login screen. So these are good first issues. So these are the labels that you are looking for. Once you have this, you can the process usually is you go here, you say I'm going to pick this issue, and you comment it. So nobody else does it because a lot of people want to do good first issues by default. So you comment that, and then you basically clone this repository. You try to run it, or sorry, you fork it first. So first you go and comment here, then you fork it. So you have your own copy in your own code repository or in your own account. That is what a fork is. So you're not really, copying this into your machine. You're copying this first to your account, your GitHub account, and then you copy or you clone it in your machine. So you have your own copy of it. Once you're done, you can create a pull request from your copy to the original repository. And I have a whole video on YouTube about the most practical GitHub way of contributing. I think maybe I can show that. Something related to GitHub. So if I try to go to videos, should be able to find it. Yeah, GitHub and Git crash course. So this is the one that you can look into. I'm going to share this in the chat. So I go through the whole process of like what is forking mean, and how to create a pull request, blah blah blah, all of those things. But yes, I'll also share the link in the chat, which is this one, good first issue, where you can find the issues from. So thank you, Christian, for sharing this. Great stuff you share, and thanks, man. No problem at all. Thank you, and thank you for the help as well. Really good suggestions throughout. Codewater says, or even a remote job. Going ahead. Sayed Dani says, what type of projects should we create to get a job? Any sort of projects that shows your skill. It doesn't have to be unique at all. I mentioned this in the stream before as well today, that don't create a project that is absolutely unique. No one has done it. Create projects which are similar to what people have done, but in your own style. So it has to be a bit different. So change the UI, change the color, add a new font to it, add more features. If you follow a particular tutorial, this is what I would do. If you want to create a project, find a YouTube video, a tutorial that builds something. Once you have finished that project or finished that video, then you either create your own project from scratch, which is similar to what you did in the portfolio project or from the YouTube tutorial, or you update that project that you did from YouTube tutorial and you add more features to it. For example, if it was a to-do application, add searching to-dos feature, add organizing to-dos in folders, for example, or sharing to-dos with different users. Add sort of Firebase authentication to it so you can save your to-dos in the cloud or in Firebase store. And then you can also have like sharing to-dos. And when you think about it, you also start thinking about what is a good use case for sharing something. So for example, if I have my to-dos, that's just, or for example, I have to do groceries, I have to read a book, I have to do this and that. But if you want to share something, what would that look like? One of the examples could be that if you live, let's say, as a bachelor with different people, and you want to share not to-dos but invoices. For example, if I at some point I was living with a lot of people as bachelors, so we sometimes I would pay for the groceries or for the lunch or for the dinner, sometimes someone else would pay, right? So if you had a shared list of who paid this time and you keep maintaining it, that's a really good project to work on, and then you can get similar ideas, of course. So I hope that really that helps. Alrighty. What is your take on data science and data engineering side? I think it's really good. Absolutely. If someone can spend time, learn it, and get expertise on this, I think that's a really good field in terms of getting good money, good jobs, for sure. But you need to know the fundamentals, not relying completely on the AI. A lot of the things about data science and data engineering roles are now being reduced by these AI models. But if you know the sort of core concepts of it, you can basically innovate. You can, add more to whatever AI is helping you with. But if you just are someone who just uses AI to do data engineering or data science, then it's not going to help quite a lot. All right, with that said, I'm actually going to close this. We're 20 minutes actually more over what we decided. So I'm going to go and have breakfast with my kid and my family. Thank you so much for joining. If this is something that you think is valuable to you, to the audience, and you feel like this is something that we should do often or, every week, I will be happy to do so. And I think probably on Sundays, definitely. So thank you so much for joining. As always, happy coding, and look out for the videos that are coming on YouTube as well. And yeah, have a happy rest of your Sunday. Take care.